وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. The topic of tonight is, actually I need a couple of disclaimers to begin this topic. The first is that inshallah ta'ala it's going to be a topic in which, forgive me in advance, there's going to be some saraha in it. There's going to be a little bit of straightforwardness, a lack of sugarcoating. And it's because it's an important topic. And so the second thing is that if some of the topic, the details that we're going to be going to may be a little bit graphic. So if you're queasy with regards to children, young children being here, then you may want to have your radars up. And I know the young people are getting excited already. But the topic is going to be about, raising children, young people in an age of such advanced technology. And the reason why this topic, I began doing research on this topic is because a father came to me in a masjid one time. It was around a year ago, a little bit over a year ago actually. And he came to me and he said to me, you know, Ammar, I need you to speak with my son. He's 13 years old and he's beginning to reach the age where, you know, he's talking to girls, so I need you to kind of sit down with him and set him straight. So I said to him, how does he talk to them? He said, you know, texting, he talks to them on the phone and things like that. So I said, what type of phone does he have? He said to me, iPhone. طبعا. Of course he has an iPhone. So I said to him, good job. Good job. And you gave your son an iPhone, he's 13 years old. And you want him to be okay. How is that my problem? So he said to me, دي طبعا مسؤوليتكم. You know, he's like trying to put it on my shoulders. If this is it's your responsibility. You guys are, you know, involved in masajid and da'wah and stuff. You need to. So I told him, you're like a person who slaughters his child and then calls me and says, come resuscitate, come resuscitate. So this is the reason why I began this type of, this research, which is basically the challenge of raising children with regards to technology. I found that many of us, we have absolutely no clue what is in the hands of our children. We have no clue. You know, there was a commercial that some of you, I'm sure, remember very well. In the 90s, right before the news would come on at 10 o'clock, there would show like a camera zooming into a dark alley, and it would say, it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are? Yeah? It was a big national campaign, Hillary Clinton's project. It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are? And the idea, the premise, was that if you were a good parent at 10 p.m., you know where your children are. Right? They're at home, they're safe, they're locked indoors, they're not out on the street doing God knows what with God knows who. So that was the idea. But the 90s was a long time ago. And subhanAllah, now, for the first time in human history, your children can be inside the house with you, but they still have access to the world. Right? Through technology, the world can come inside. And so the first thing that I want to look at, why is this topic important, first of all? Why is it something that every single one of us is responsible for? Because Allah Azza wa Jalla says, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا قُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ وَأَهْلِيكُمْ نَارًا وَقُودُهَا النَّاسُ وَالْحِجَارَةُ. Allah says, O you who believe, save yourselves and save your children from a fire whose fuel is men and stones. So this khitab indicates amr. The command indicates that it is an obligation, meaning that you are rewardable for doing it and you are punishable for not doing it, from saving yourself and doing what you can to save your family from the fire whose fuel is men and stones. The Prophet ﷺ says, كُلُّكُمْ رَاعٍ وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. Every single one of you is a shepherd and every single one of you is responsible for his flock. And so that responsibility, by the fact that you have children, Allah Azza wa Jalla has given you that responsibility, and Allah Azza wa Jalla, inshallah ta'ala, will assist you in doing so, because لَا يُكَلِّفُ اللَّهُ نَفْسًا إِلَّا وُسْعَهَا. Guidance is in the hands of Allah, but you are still responsible to do your part. You must be constantly vigilant when raising children, especially being that we have all decided that we are going to raise our children here. Okay. So, the other introduction is that there's some good news and there's some bad news. I'll start with the bad news first. The bad news is that if you raise your children, you know, the greatest image and the greatest imprint that a father or a mother has, usually, with regards to how they raise their children, the greatest prototype is their own parents. So you want to raise your child the way that your father raised you. Your father did this, so you did this. You'll find that people who were never disciplined, they look down upon disciplining. People who are disciplined, they're like, their disciplining is fine, and I plan on doing it to my children as well. Yani, it is the greatest imprint on you. Now, if a person raises their parents, their children, the same way that they raise their parents raise them, they will find many times that it doesn't work. Why? Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu has a beautiful statement. He says, رَبُّ أَبْنَاءَكُمْ لِجِيلِهِمْ فَإِنَّهُمْ خُلِقُوا لِجِيلٍ غَيْرَ جِيلِكُمْ. He says, raise your children for their generation, because they were created to inherit a world other than yours. They were created for a generation other than yours. You'll find that between one generation and another, in the same city, in the same town, you will find a vast difference in the values and in the culture of the people. And it's just a difference of 30 years. So what do you think, especially with regards to most of our cases, where we are not only raising our children in a different town, but in a different hemisphere, amongst the different people, speaking a different language, different religions. Everything is different. So if all of the inputs is different, then how can I reasonably expect that the output is going to be the same? That is not reasonable. So you have to be different, and you have to exert a lot of energy in making sure that you are raising your children to, inshallah ta'ala, be people of success. The Prophet ﷺ, he says, ثَلَاثَ لَا يَدْخُلُونَ الْجَنَّةَ أَبَدًا. There are three categories of people who will never, ever enter paradise. And here, he doesn't mean that they will never, ever, ever enter paradise, but he is just emphasizing. Who are these three categories of people? The first, he says, الدَّيُّوث وَمُدْمِنُ الْخَمْرِ وَالرِّجْلَةُ مِنَ النِّسَاءِ. The Sahaba, they said, Ya Rasulullah, we know who mudmin al-khamr is. Mudmin al-khamr is the person who is addicted to alcohol, the alcoholic. He said this person will not enter paradise. They said, what is a dayuth? They didn't know what this term meant. He says, الَّذِي لَا يُبَالِ بِمَنْ دَخَلَ عَلَى أَهْلِ. The one who doesn't care who enters upon his family. The person who doesn't care who is speaking to their daughter. The person who doesn't care who's speaking to their son, who's speaking to his wife, who's speaking to her husband. That person who has none of that ghira, that protective jealousy over their family, the Prophet ﷺ says this person will enter paradise. So now, we have to be aware with regards to protecting our families. Protecting our families. And because the world has changed, so that access to your family is no longer somebody knocking on your door and you opening and saying, who are you? It is now through a cell phone. It is now through an instant message. It is now through Facebook. It is now through so many different vehicles. You have to exert effort in learning. And you do not have the luxury of simply saying, I don't know about this technology. But my son says he wants an iPhone, so I got him an iPhone. And I told him, be good. I got my son the new iPad. Yes, he wanted it, so I got it for him. I don't know what it does, inshallah ta'ala khair. No, you don't have that luxury. You don't have that luxury. The Prophet ﷺ, he says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَيَعْجَبُ مِنْ شَابٍ لَيْسَتْ لَهُ صَبْوَةٌ. What is a sabwa? Ulama قالوا مَيْلٌ إِلَى الْهَوَى. Allah Azza wa Jal is amazed at a young person who does not have a slip, who does not have an inclination towards being mischievous, towards doing what their passions call them to. Passions walk with a young person. They are inclined to fulfill their passions. They feel, we all remember this, during your times of middle school and high school, social pressure is so strong at that time, right? So Allah is amazed at a child or a young person who does not bow down to any of those pressures, the external as well as the internal. That is a unique individual. Everybody else, normal, they will be inclined to fulfill that. So as parents, you have to be constantly vigilant and protective of your children. So I wanted to look at the first, which is cell phones. I wanted to look at the first example, which is cell phones. So there was a few internet research. There was a survey recently that showed that 71% of teens had cell phones in this country. 71%. 50% 59 having phones at the age of 12 to 14, and 83 between the ages of 15 and 17. So 59% between the ages of 12 and 14 have cell phones, their own personal phones. And 83% between 15 and 17. I'm not going to argue that children shouldn't have cell phones or that young people shouldn't have cell phones. We all know, parents will say, they need a cell phone so I can contact them. Even, subhanAllah, I was recently in a city, I don't remember which one, but I didn't have my cell phone with me, and I was looking around for payphones. And when was the last time you saw a payphone? And they remove them from the streets. Even if you're looking for one now, you can barely find one. You have to go really far to simply find one. So it's not reasonable to say that children shouldn't have cell phones or that they shouldn't have access to it. But the thing that I want you to ask yourself is, what type of phone do my children have? My brothers and sisters, my younger brothers and sisters, what type of phone do they have? What are the capabilities of this phone? Do I even know what the capabilities of this phone are? And do they need all of these capabilities? So with your average smartphone, you have full access to the internet. Full access to the internet. You can video chat, you can send pictures. All of that is available with your average smartphone. If you remember back in the days when the internet first came into people's homes, you would have something like Net Zero, AOL, and the first thing that would happen was that you would set up a computer in the living room, and then you would go and play with the parental controls, right? You play with the parental controls. So you give your child who's under the age of 10, you give them under 10 access. The child who's a teenager, you give them teenage access. So they have access to limited sites on the internet that are deemed according to that particular age group, accessible or acceptable for that particular age group. Now, most parents have no clue about parental controls. It's got them by. So now their children basically just have whatever device they give them, and they're just hoping that it turns out okay, right? With your average cell phone, right, you can text, you can send video messages, you can do all of these things. So now when you have all of these young people with phones that they can take pictures and they can share video and they can record video, what do you think they're going to do with it? So there is a zahira now, something that's very popular, which is the sending of images that have in them the human body somewhat uncovered. People are taking pictures, either partially nude or fully nude. Young people. And young people haven't stopped falling in love, and they haven't stopped making mistakes. They would always do that. But something very interesting, before, all of a person's mistakes were recorded in the memories of the people who were there who witnessed them. So every single one of us, if we were to interview our close friends at stages in high school and middle school and these places, people would say, remember when you did such and such? Remember when you did such and such? Or maybe they've forgotten about it. But now, even when kids outside of a high school fight, two kids are fighting and everybody else is going like this. Right? They're all doing this. They're recording it and they're going to put it up online somewhere. Yani subhanAllah, this generation, unfortunately, they have the problem that all of their mistakes are just a phone device away from being recorded and put online. And once something goes online, as they say, it never comes down. It never comes down. And so these mistakes that people make. So let's look at this, this issue of nude pictures. A 2008 survey conducted, this is a national survey conducted by the National Campaign to Prevent Teen and Unplanned Pregnancy. They said 20% of the overall teens, that's 1 out of every 5, indicated that they have either sent or posted nude or semi-nude pictures or videos of themselves. Okay? That's 20%. 1 out of every 5. Additionally, 39% of the surveyed teens indicated that they had sent or posted sexually suggestive messages. That's 40%. Finally, the survey noted that 48%, almost 50% of the teens, 1 out of every 2, said that they received such messages. Okay? So what does that mean? Finally, the most staggering of the findings included that these types of messages have often unintended viewers and are often forwarded as a form of social currency by those looking to show off or be funny. This is the most staggering image. What does that mean? Social currency. It means that when a girl believes a guy when he says that he loves her and that she's this and that she's that, and he finally convinces her to take a picture of herself, and she sends him that picture. He goes and he shows it to his friend. He goes and he shows it to 2 of his friends, 3 of his friends. Why? Because it increases his social currency. It shows that he is the man to his friends. And brothers have told me this. Brothers have told me, people who come to the masjid, the Jum'ah, young brothers, they'll say, yeah, these brothers, they showed me a picture of 2 or 3 girls that they were talking to, their hijabis, and they showed them pictures of them without their hijab because they sent them to them, right? Increasing their social currency. So these are mistakes that young people make. Now, what happens when young people fall out of love? What happens when they have a fight and you have at their disposal these images and these pictures? You have online entire websites that are devoted at exes getting back at their exes. People who have fallen out of love and they want to harm the person who they were once in a relationship with, and so they upload very compromising images and videos. And people's lives become ruined because of things like this. And you imagine, now the first thing that we do when we come across a person's name is we simply Google it. When you apply for a job, they just Google your name. Everybody just looks at your name, they Google it, they look you up on Facebook. So imagine a person, poor miskeen, who the first thing that comes up of their name is this image, is this website, is this problem. People end up having, some people have had to change their names because of this. And I was looking and reading interviews of people who, young people, they made a mistake, something like that. They had a vicious breakup, and that person wanted to get back at them, and they uploaded it, and this becomes the first thing when they can't get a job. They might have been rejected from their school applications, and they have to go to the extreme, some cases, of actually changing their name. These are mistakes that young people make. But the thing that every person should be concerned of is, how do I minimize the mistakes of the young people who are under my authority or under my control? Then you have another issue. The issue of what's available online. What's available online. So you have studies in the United States that say that 90%, begin before that, 50% of all children who have reached the age of 7 in the United States have seen their first pornographic image. 1 out of every 2 have seen by the age of 7 their first pornographic image. I remember the first time, one of the times I was talking about this in the masjid, a father got very upset. He had a 10-year-old son with him. And he said, how could you be talking about this in the masjid? And he's yelling, and he grabs his son and he's walking out. And he's yelling, he's very upset. And I was telling him, subhanAllah, look at this person. He's so upset about it being discussed in a masjid, but Allah knows what his child is seeing in public school. Allah knows what his child is seeing out on the street. Allah knows what his child is seeing on his phone. Even worse, much worse than us simply discussing this in a masjid, right? 1 out of every 2 children in the United States by the age of 7 have seen their first pornographic image. Now, what do you think a child is going to do when you have a 10-year-old boy, 11-year-old boy, 12-year-old boy, and they have unfettered access to the internet, and it is all in the privacy of their phone, in their room, at school, or what have you? إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَيَعْجَبُ مِنْ شَابٍ لَيْسَتْ لَهُ صَبْوَةٌ. Allah Azza wa Jal is amazed at a young person who does not have a mail ila al-hawa, a inclination towards fulfilling their passions and their desires. Now the problem with it is that pornography is very much addictive. Just like any drug. The dopamine that is released in a person's brain when they see a pornographic image, that release is just like what is released when a person is enjoying a narcotic. It is just as addictive. You know, they define addiction as something that, there are some definitions of addiction where it is something that actually impairs a person from doing what they're actually supposed to do. So a person who's addicted, they may, even while they should be working, they should be doing their normal daily functions, they cannot do their normal daily functions, and they resort to that thing that they're addicted to. Okay? And pornography, addiction to pornography is just the same. Except because it isn't considered to be an addiction, it doesn't have the support groups that any other drug addiction would have. Okay? And it is very easy for a habit to become a problem habit, which becomes an addiction. Now, how does this affect a child who's 12 years old? Imagine a child who's 12 years old who's become addicted to pornography. At the age of 12, it happens. This person, by the time they're 25, right, they've gone through their almost double their life, right? Half of their life at this point has been addicted to pornography. It's a boy. Ahmed, let's say his name's Ahmed. By the time he's 25, his parents, he's graduated school, he's done all of that, it's time for Ahmed to get married. So they find for him Fatima. And Fatima's a beautiful girl, and he gets married. The problem is that Ahmed secretly for the past 13 years of his life has been addicted to pornography. He is wired, he is designed at this point that when he has shahwa, it is released instantly. Right? He just presses a button, he downloads something, and that's it. Now he's got a living, breathing woman in front of him. And she's got all sorts of knobs and buttons and things that you have to work on for her to react positively. He doesn't have time for any of that. Not only that, everyone says she's a beautiful bride. She's beautiful. Ahmed is used to, within 10 minutes, seeing 100 women. Right? Seeing 100 figures. And that's been his case the entire life. Some of our ajdad, subhanAllah, the first nude picture that they might have ever seen was their wife on their wedding day. That was the first time that they ever saw anything nude in their life.
They did.
Right?
If they ever did.
If they ever did. Right? So their wife for them is the female figure. And they are content with that. Now you're talking about people who are raised and they have literally seen thousands and thousands before they meet their wife. You can imagine the problems that this causes in marriage. Much less when the woman realizes that for some reason she finds that her husband does not find her desirable, he's not attracted to her, or he has strange desires and fetishes that have come from years of this addiction. Okay? So this is a very, 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 as you can imagine, problematic issue that can destroy marriages. That can destroy marriages and is destroying marriages. Again, this behavior isn't something that's learned in their 20s, but this is something that comes from early childhood. And it can become an addiction in early childhood. Then is the issue of waiting. The issue of waiting. I remember being in masjid one time and there was a brother, it's a young brother. He was saying, Akhi, I need to get married. So there was another brother who was an older brother. And he was saying to him, Allah, that's great news. When do you want to get married? He said, I want to get married in 2 weeks. He's like, what do you mean you want to get married in 2 weeks? Do you have anybody in mind? He's like, no, I just want to get married in 2 weeks. He said, yeah, listen. Half of the pleasure of getting married is in preparing. Organizing, getting yourself an apartment, getting situated, the anticipation, the waiting. Even that is half of the pleasure of getting married. Don't you want to spend time planning and organizing and getting everything ready? And the brother, at the end of all of that, he said, no, I just want to get married. That's it. Why? Because this is a generation where, there's a comedian, he was joking about how this is the most amazing time wasted on the most ungrateful generation. People are, watching videos on their phones and they're getting upset that it's not loading fast enough. It's taking 2 seconds to load. People are like, oh my God, my connection is so slow. He said, appreciate the fact that this is coming to you from space, right? All of this is happening. But everybody wants fast everything. They want fast food, they want fast internet. Continue to exist. Once their values disappear, then that nation will disappear as well. So limiting screen time is something that every family should look into. The third is just looking into the plans and details of the technology that you give to your children. I'm not making the argument that they shouldn't have it. I'm simply saying, pay attention to it. If every parent, they say, well, my child needs a phone so that I can contact them. If you just need to contact them, then why do they need internet access? Why do they need the ability to video message? Why do they need all of these capabilities if you simply are giving them a phone so that when you call them, they answer? Why? You know, one of the reasons is because this is something that's just fitrah in a parent. They do not want their child to feel like they are in need of anything. They do not want their child to feel that they have less than other children. Isn't that right? And so when all of these other children have something, you want to make your child feel that they have what is equal, and you are providing for them. But the challenge is what? The challenge is if you see everybody going this way. You have to be able to go a different way if that is what's going to raise your child properly the way that you want. You know, when you see these trees, when they're new and they put them on the sidewalk, they tie them down with rope. It's called staking. In landscaping, it's called staking. You look it up, and why do they do that? Why do they tie these trees down with rope? They say they stake the tree, especially in places that are on an incline or in places that are excessively windy. Places that are on an incline or places that are incredibly windy, so that the tree can grow straight. And once they're confident that that tree is going to go straight, they remove the ropes. And it's a beautiful metaphor, really. Especially in places that have an incline, they're not straight. And places that have a lot of riyah, places that have a lot of wind. And your children, some of these things they will, you know, feel very uncomfortable with. And some of these things they will appreciate when they grow older. But it requires a little bit of patience. And I don't want any young people to think that it's because people don't have trust in you or all of these things that I'm saying. Sometimes they think, man, the way he's presenting it, he's acting like we're all going to just go crazy and do evil things. No, that's not the case, right? That's not the case, but the point is that there is a lot of danger out there, right? And your parents, their job, their number one job is to protect you, to preserve you, to protect your deen, to protect your character, and to protect you from mistakes that may harm you for the rest of your life. So looking into the details of these plans that you're getting for your children. And the last is to advise the community and to empower them, right? To advise these children, to speak to them, to communicate to them. Why is it that you want these things? Why is it that and to empower them so that when they come to the masjid, that they're involved in these conversations, that you hear from them and they hear from you, so that the vision is shared and so that they understand the purposes of these things that you are providing for them or that you're not providing for them. The last thing that I want you to look at, and this is homework from today, is there was a mother. If you simply Google a mom iPhone contract, there was a mother, she's not Muslim, but muwaffaqa, mashallah, Allah Azza wa Jal gave her tawfiq with regards to a contract that she gave her child when she gave him an iPhone. So he was 13 years old and she gave him an iPhone. But she didn't just simply give him an iPhone and say, here, now do whatever it is that you will. She gave him a contract also. And the contract has around 18 or 19 points. And so the child has to agree to all of these points to receive this iPhone. So he understands, firstly, that it is a privilege and not a right. Sometimes your kid will say, give me my phone. You took away my phone. So they understand that it's whose phone first? That it's the parents' phone. They're the ones who bought it. And that's the first point that she says. She says, it's my phone. I'm the one who bought it for you. I'm the one who pays for it. Aren't I great? Second, there are a lot of points that you can look at, but of the points that really I found were very beautiful, she says, for example, I will always know the password. That's just the way that it goes. I'll always know the password. I can check it whenever I want. The third is, you will always answer when your mother or your father call you. You will always answer. Number 4, no pornography. Number 5, don't do this or don't do that. And she continues to give. But the point being is that she had listed out what she wants, what she hopes. And there will be times, if that child ever breaches those rules, that she can simply take it away, and then they can discuss it, and then she can give it back whenever she feels it, right? But this is not simply just giving something, there is also tarbiyah that is involved. So we ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to allow us to benefit from what we have heard, and we ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to protect us and to preserve us, to protect our hearts, to protect our children, and allow us, inshallah ta'ala, to be of those who are Allah Azza wa Jalla says, وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَاتَّبَعَتْهُمْ ذُرِّيَّتُهُم بِإِيمَانٍ أَلْحَقْنَا بِهِمْ ذُرِّيَّتَهُمْ. Allah Azza wa Jalla says that those who believe and their children follow them in Iman, they will catch up to them. Right? Every soul shall have what it has given. So we ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to protect us and to protect our children and to make us all of those, inshallah ta'ala, those who inherit Jannat al-Firdaus. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I know that this is a very loaded topic, so if you have any questions, points of discussion, ahlan wa sahlan.